Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Criticality Live. Kayla and I are super excited. It's a new year, and we have a massive amount of awesome guests that are lined up. So, with that, this is our show. We cut through the noise, challenge assumptions, and talk honestly about the state of cybersecurity. With that, we have an amazing guest today. He is truly a unique individual in our field. It is Len Noe. He is known as the Transhuman hacker, and his work sits at the intersection of human performance, cyber capabilities, and what happens when we stop treating technology as something outside of us and start treating it as part of who we are. He explores how wearables, bio-augmentation, cognitive optimization, hacker culture are reshaping not just systems, but people themselves. And most importantly, what does that mean for security, identity, leadership, in a world where the line between humans and machines are getting thinner every day? This isn't science fiction, it's already here. So let's get into it and welcome Len Noe to the show.
Well, can't hear you, Len.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I may be part machine, but the machine still glitch for me too.
Yeah, well, first, Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited because I did a little bit of research beforehand, and this is I feel like this is going to be one of the best conversations that I've been a part of in a long time. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I kind of wanted to start off by talking about how there's always this journey into leadership. I mean, we've been there, right? There's like that early spark, a moment, something that makes you realize, my path is over here. So when you think back to that very first hacker moment, not just the security, but when you realize that you could bend systems in ways that others couldn't, what was that moment for you? What stands out?
Oh, that's kind of a two-part question because, if we're being honest about it, I look at it from multiple perspectives because there was that, I put it in my book, in my autobiography. The first time I actually did a hack was honestly in my opinion, it was on a Commodore 64. There was back in the day, I mean, Joshua, you remember the good old days where, you didn't have the internet and, if you wanted to actually have a program, you went to a store and you would buy applications, or in some cases, and this is for all of those younger people, there was a time where if you wanted to learn how to program, you could actually buy a magazine. It was called Commodore Monthly. And there was an opportunity to basically code your own Frogger style video game. And it was basically a simple Boolean 0 or 1. And I mistyped and created a God mode for my frog.
Oh.
So that was the first moment that I really realized that the code in the back affects what happens in the front. And it was just off to the races, and that honestly took me down a very bad road. I mean, I haven't hidden, my history. I'm a former black hat. I'm a former cyber criminal. I'm a retired motorcycle gang member, and I like to tell people that I got most of my experience through practical application. And the second part of your initial question was, when I kind of realized that, as you said, the mechanics of technology, we've integrated them into our lives already. I remember at one point I made a statement that, resistance is futile. We're already Borg. And the only difference is we were keeping all of that technology external to the body. But let me ask you, both of you guys, a question, and let's be honest. You said it yourself. I'm one of those unique guests. Oh, and absolutely, Radio Shack. I'm looking at the chats. Radio Shack was my second home. But let me ask you guys, both of you, a question, and let's be honest for the audience. How well would you do if I took away your cell phone right now?
Oh, I'd melt down.
You know, and let's take it one step further. How could we live as a society if we were to suddenly lose all of our technology? We are already technologically addicted. We just chose to do it in such a way that it's external. And the truth is, I've been into body modification. You know, if for anybody that's looking, I tell people I have one tattoo. It starts at my neck and goes all the way to the top of my feet. I've had multiple body piercings over the years. I do flesh hook suspensions as a hobby.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and so the idea of augmenting myself was really just, in my opinion, the next step up the evolutionary ladder, and I will never forget it. There was a time, I want to say it was around 2014, 15, and anybody that wants to go back and look at this, there was a group, they were called Grindhouse Wetware. And they were a group of people, and I believe they were out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And this was the first group of individuals that decided that they wanted to try and create implantable consumer-based electronics. And they created a couple of devices. The biggest one that everybody really remembers is called the North Star. And it was put into the top of the hand, and it was red LEDs, and it would make you look like Iron Man. At the time, and just a quick comment to one of the things in the chat, a man called Horse was exactly what got me interested in doing the flesh hook suspensions in the first place. I love doing live podcasts like this, but it's so hard to focus on you and try and keep the chat people. But, you know, I'm doing my best here. But I remember they had put out a couple of different implants. The North Star was the first one. Then there was one called the Circadia. And this was an implantable device that was about the size of a deck of cards. And it was the world's first Fitbit, you know, and it would take your biostats. It would do your blood oxygen, all that kind of stuff. And it actually stuck out on the inside of the hand or the inside of the arm, to the point where it looked like he had a deck of cards under his skin. And the gentleman that did it, actually, I believe he flew to Berlin, Germany.
Always Berlin.
It's always Berlin.
It's always the Germans.
You know, but hey, when it comes to BME, which is body modification extreme, the Germans are right up there, and they're good friends of mine. Yeah. But I was actually just sitting in I know this is going to sound funny, but a lot of people, when they travel, you know, collect either shot glasses or the little collector spoons and things. I collect stickers from tattoo parlors.
Nice.
You know,
very cool.
It's my shtick. And I was sitting outside of a tattoo parlor off of one of the canals in Amsterdam, and they were saying that there was another piercing parlor the next town down where they had implantable RFID microchips in the shop. So it went from being, you know, talking about the North Star and the Iron Man thing. It didn't really work for me, because at that particular point in my life, I was an active cyber criminal, and the idea of putting blinky things on you does not do much for obfuscation. So I thought it was cool, but it just wasn't for me. But when I found out that they had finally reached a point where we had the ability for input-output capabilities, it completely just opened my mind to the possibilities that we could move beyond that physical barrier between physical and technological. So it was shortly thereafter I started going down this road, and I started with a simple RFID NFC combination chip by dangerousthings.com. And yes, that is where we get all of our consumer grade electronics for implantation. And it was really just, it was like being able to live out those Star Wars Jedi fantasies that I had when I was a kid, because I could literally communicate with machines using the protocols that they use. It started out simple, and from there I moved into a secondary chip called the VivoKey Spark. And this is actually a cryptobionic chip that actually enhances my security online. It's FIPS compliant. It's FIDO. It can do FIDO 2, HMAC, SHA-1, PGP. So I looked at this as a way to both attack and defend utilizing technology. And the one thing that people didn't really come to the understanding of until I actually started really bringing this to the forefront is the way that the medical privacy laws, both here in the United States as well as in the European Union under GDPR and HIPAA, anything that gets put inside the body or in vivo takes on the same protections as if it was medical grade. So I actually have governmental obfuscation for hackers' tools, and the police aren't, and the government are not even allowed to ask me about them because it's considered medical privacy.
Oh, that's a cool little tidbit there. Wow.
So, thinking about the stuff that you've done, obviously you had thoughts and opinions about transhuman experimentation early on.
Yes.
How did that line up to where you are now and where you think things are going to be, 5-10 years from now?
I think your time frame is a little bit off. I don't think it's 5 to 10. I think it's 3 to 6.
Okay.
I really do. When it comes to where I started, it started with just a simple idea. I was actually sitting at Black Hat one year. I want to say it was around 2018, and it was when everybody was beaming their contact cards via Bluetooth or via NFC. And I'm just sitting there in the booth. At the time I was working for CyberArk, and I'm working the booth and I'm just watching everybody here. Let me beam you my business card. Let me give you my business card. And I was like, this doesn't seem safe. And I remember going back and looking at just the NFC protocol, and I'm like, this thing is not secured. It's the backing protocol behind Apple Pay and Android Pay, so it's probably going to be turned on. I mean, and honestly, if you look at the fact that iOS has actually now made it impossible to turn NFC off, so they are basically pushing a vulnerable protocol. And then I started looking into NFC triggers. And it was very quick to realize I can use a URL redirection to either send a browser to an infected site with malware on it, something like Beef. And yes, I still like the old classics. Beef is still great. So is John the Ripper. We can really go back and we can talk about Lovecraft later if we get bored. But, it just opened up this whole possibility. And then it was like, all right, if I can do that, what else can I do? Well, there are other NFC triggers where you can have a predefined email or predefined text message. Well, now I can do phishing from a real originating source. Oh, you can use NFC to connect someone to a Wi-Fi network. So let's put a transparent proxy in front of that and let's sniff their traffic. Up until this point, everything I have is either falls into the realms of either near field communication or RFID, but that is changing hopefully by the end of this month. So I have no problem giving you guys the exclusive. You're hearing it here first. So I've been working with Emil Garofstra from Dangerous Things, and we have what is a new device coming out that is going to be called the Ghost Drive. And this is an implantable 1 terabyte hard drive. It's about the size, a little bit larger than a memory stick chip for like an old camera, one of the SDs. Mm-hmm. But it has its own little microcontroller on it, has a little battery in it, and I will be able to exfiltrate up to 1 terabyte's worth of data. And once again, this is inside my body, so therefore it's covered by HIPAA protections. So I could potentially exfiltrate an entire data center and nobody's going to be able to even question me about it. We're finally getting to the point where we're moving away from passive style attacks with NFC and RFID because of the requirements of the receiver. And we're now moving into where I can actually be in an active attack role.
That's really, go ahead, Josh.
So have you talked to the intelligence agencies about this capability yet?
Funny you bring that up. I was actually scheduled to speak for the Society of the Old Crows, and if you've never heard of them, that is what used to be the Department of Defense's group, but now it's the Department of War's Defenses. And I was scheduled to go and speak to them right before the shutdown ended. So unlike everybody else who got kind of screwed over with the government shutdown, I got screwed over because of the government start up. So I am on. We're in the process of rescheduling that, but you bring up a really interesting point. I had someone reach out to me actually yesterday, who's looking to become a transhuman, and they're like, "I'm curious. Can I go into a skiff?" No, you cannot. And this is one of the whole things that I'm trying to do with the government, is to get them to understand and be able to present to them this type of threat so that they can actually look into countermeasures. But at the same time, this is not against the law. And where does that play from a governmental perspective of, if I want to get an implant in my hand because I want to be able to get into my house or a gym or a garage, can the government tell you that you can't?
Yeah, that was kind of where my question was going as well. It's like, does this now potentially have the opportunity to change our privacy laws, or like, not just to change them from like a HIPAA perspective, but maybe actually have privacy laws here, federal across the board, like a GDPR-esque law?
Well, but to get to that, we have to step back a little bit, because when we look at consumer grade implantable technology, we have to look at how it is actually perceived by the US government.
Yep.
Every one of these implants that I have is regulated via the federal FCC. However, they are looked at as nothing more than body jewelry. So if you were to go in and want to get your ear pierced or your tongue pierced, these are the exact same provisions and perceptions that they're being looked at by the government, when there are zero federal laws in regards to human microchipping. There are two types of laws that have been put down at the state level. You have a general outright ban on microchipping in 7 states here in the US, which you just cannot get a microchip implanted as a human being in these states. Then there are 3 states in the US that have actually enacted laws that you cannot be forced to get a microchip for the purposes of time and attendance through your employer. Because there was a point where there were a couple of companies that were trying to mandate microchipping for the purposes of human resources, and some states went, yeah, 3 states went, nope, you can't do that. But there are multiple states that there is no laws stopping it. And the last thing we have to look at is the fact that here in the United States, we do have what is called the right to self-experiment. So if you want to do medical experimentation or any type of self-augmentation, you have that right under our Constitution. So the ability, we talk about federal regulations on this, but my follow-up question to that would be, how could we do it?
Yeah, and to your point, a lot of it's state driven, because I live here in Louisiana, and you cannot get any dermal implants done in the state of Louisiana unless it's done by a medical doctor.
But and no medical doctors will touch you.
30 minutes across the border into Texas, and the piercer over in Wascom can implant anything they want. Yep. And it's wildly different depending on where you live.
Absolutely. And but the other thing we have to look at is it's people like me and other individuals like me that are actually pushing innovation. I love the fact that, we're seeing a lot more coming out. I mean, I don't know if you guys read the article that just came out 2 days ago from Elon Musk around Neuralink. Mm-hmm. So Neuralink is talking about going into full production here before the end of 2026, which I don't know how. We're still dealing with patient 2. But the one thing when it comes to brain-computer interfaces and the more advanced medical side of implantable technology, I think we need to start really focusing on the one thing that hasn't been brought up yet, which is the concepts of neural data privacy. All of these devices, especially from a medical perspective, and we're seeing more and more. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the implant for sleep apnea yet.
Yeah, I have. I have sleep apnea, and my doctor offered it to me. I was like, nope, I'm good, thanks.
Well, but I love the fact that that is being pushed on the consciousness of the general population, because the way I see it, there is no difference between the sleep apnea implant and what I'm doing. And the reason I know one's for medical purposes, but at the same time, this is an implant that is only there to try and enhance the human condition. There's already sleep CPAP machines. There's a solution. This just makes it more convenient. And there's no difference, in my opinion, between what I'm doing, because I could walk up to a keyboard and type things, but this just makes it more convenient. And we are, as a society, we want to be as close to that digital horizon as we can humanly get. The only difference between me and everyone else is I'm not afraid to go under the knife to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think back to, the old days, and I'd never say this about you, Kayla, you look way too young for this, but Joshua, you and I look old.
Thanks.
I mean, you remember Atari video games and stuff. When we video game systems, it was just a stick and a button.
Yep.
Then we went to, I believe it was the PlayStation. The original PlayStation brought out the Rumble Pack for your controllers, which added tactile sensation to the game. And now we have things like Tesla suits, which are complete augmented reality suits that they're using to train first responders and military that will even simulate gunshots and knife wounds. We want to be as close to that digital horizon as possible, but nobody wants to take the risk to go all the way.
Well, to that, I know several people who have Teslas and got NFC chips implanted in their hands. So the key for their car is, let me in my car.
Yep.
Start my car. Mm-hmm. It's all there, and it's as easily programmable as a Flipper Zero is with the right interface.
I love Flipper Zeros. And if anybody, and I've even reached out to Flipper, and I'm going to take this opportunity because I know this is a large audience. If anybody over at Flipper is looking for a brand ambassador, I'm the only guy I know that people walk up and scan when I walk in a room. It's kind of like, the modern version of the dog. We're not sniffing each other, but you're going to scan me. It's great.
That's great. So I mean, please, if anyone has any contacts, like let's build this up. Let's get it out there so we can get Len.
Let's make this happen.
Yeah, let's do it. So I guess, you're not just doing the work, you're actively experimenting, right? Like, this is clear. So are they in your hands? Is that where they are? Is that where everything is?
This is the big one.
Okay. Yeah.
I have one there. I have one right here. I have another one right here. I have magnets in my pinkies. This one right here is an RFID. I have an 8K Desfire right here. I have an HID 2.0 over here. I have a VivoKey Apex here. Mm-hmm. I have a secure Java card right here. That one's a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, I saw Bailey's comment. I mean, that'd be a really long way for it to migrate to a foot, to open a front door with a foot. So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I look flexible. And maybe I got it's kind of like that old disco song. Everybody was kung fu fighting to open the door. Just get my foot up there.
Well, I mean, this is a little bit kind of off topic and well, not really, I guess. But there have been other implantables for women. There's birth control that can be implantable that women have had for a really long time. So I kind of feel like this is just, it's a bigger risk in terms of the data privacy side of having technology in you. But it to your point before, Len, it's a natural progression of that kind of technology of things going in the body. So it's not as far-fetched as some people may think it is.
Oh, no. And if you look at nanotechnology, especially around medical science, mm-hmm. everything is moving more internally. There's been a couple of new cancer treatments where it's an implantable device that actually targets the cells and releases the medication and the radiation very, very specifically. We're moving towards this methodology. And if we're looking at it from a health perspective, it actually opens up a lot of more channels for the doctors, because the device is providing real-time feedback to a mobile device. That mobile device is connected back to the hospital.
Mhm.
Doctors are able to provide more advanced treatments quicker and across larger distances. So I do think that this is the way that things are going to be going. The scary part, like I said before, is as we start moving down this road, how do we address the slop? How do we address the data mining? I mean, I've actually had some communication with Neuralink's patient one, Mr. Arbaugh, and he is actually currently leading the charge for neural data privacy because everything that's going across that BCI, and let's be honest, we are not at the point where we can download our consciousness or anything of that sort. We have
Yeah.
the total functionality of either Neuralink, Synchron, BrainGate, any of these types of devices is simply up, down, left, right, and click. We've added machine learning for the ability to try and predict text like you can on your cell phone when you're texting someone. It'll give you yeah, do you want this word, this word, this word? But this is all we have.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's data that we may not completely understand yet that these devices are able to pick up.
Yeah.
What, we all, especially in the cybersecurity world, we're all out there going, look, everything you put into to an LLM becomes the property of the LLM. Oh, everything you put out on social media is being data harvested. They're creating digital profiles on us. What does that do when it starts being able to also register thoughts and intent?
Well, I look at it and go, I'm going to show my age again. I'm going to reference the movie Gattaca,
Oh, I love that movie.
where there is a lot of bioimplantation, a lot of monitoring, and what are we doing with that, and how do we prevent organizations like, say, insurance companies from
Mm-hmm.
using that to determine what is and isn't covered, you
Mhm.
know, whether or not you're sticking to your medication regime, and that determines whether or not your procedure is going to be covered or not. So there are second and third order effects even from that perspective.
Uh, Absolutely. A couple of quick answers from the chat. Yes, I use my implants at home. I have RFID locks on my doors and things. And in terms of the optical implants that are coming out, there's a lot of stuff that's coming. We're not really there yet. The closest thing I've seen is some HUD style contact lenses that will actually give you a little bit of a heads up display. Saw those at Jitex about a year and a half ago, but we're, optic nerves are something completely different. But I do think that we're going to get there.
Oh, cool.
We're, in my opinion, I don't think we're so far off into the future that the idea of how we go to a day spa for a massage or a treatment, I don't think we're that many years off from being able to walk in and just say, you know what, I want that arm over there, I want this new leg over here. And if you ask me, one of the reasons that we really haven't ever gotten to this point yet is when it comes to prosthetic devices, we've never been able to match the functionality of the biological original parts.
Mm.
And we're now at a point where they're doing new experimentation on advanced next generation prosthetics that, let's say you wound up losing an arm. Those nerve bundles that used to go down to your hand are severed in the end of that stump. And they're discovering that if and this has to be unique to each individual, but if you can line up specific sensors to where those nerve bundles are severed in the stump, you can pass tactile sensation via a synthetic limb. People are now able to feel heat, they're able to feel cold, they're able to feel pressure and tactile response. So now we start having to ask the moral question of, if I can have a replacement part that is at least as good as what I was born with, why can't I go beyond? And this is where I think we need to look at things from a societal perspective. Because, as I said, if all you could get was a peg leg like a pirate, that's not really an advancement. But if I can put a hydraulic leg on there that would allow me to stand in caustic materials or be able to bench, squat press 2 tons. Now we need to stop looking at things from the perspective of, is this good for the human, to is this good for society? And at that point, we have to figure out, how do we keep this from becoming the rich get implants and advances, and the poor, how do we keep this technology free for everyone and not allow it to become a new division point between people?
So, keeping down that thread, you know, as we start optimizing human as an endpoint, what attack paths are you concerned about? And are we potentially looking at like a Repo Man scenario
I love that
where,
movie. I
where
really did.
you get an upgrade and then you'd miss a payment and somebody comes takes your arm or takes your artificial heart pacemaker from you?
I think it's possible. I mean, we definitely moved to a consumer society to the point where we don't care if we put people out on the streets. I think the human animal is a very selfish and possessive creature. And I think it's our choices that separate us from those animals. So I think by having these types of conversations now and starting to get people actually involved. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Open Pancreas Project.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of open source medical type stuff because, we're not everybody has good insurance, but we all have the right to live. So there's another company out there that is, it's a GitHub repo. I'll find this and I'll send this to you guys so you can add it to the notes. But if you are an amputee, there is a site out there where they will give you the plans to 3D print prosthetics, add servo motors so that you can actually have articulatable things. We, I think, are starting as a species are starting to realize that we don't need to wait for medical innovation. Because half the time, let's be honest, how long do you have to wait to see a doctor? How many hopes with insurance do you have to jump through?
Mhm.
I think we've just reached a point where people are getting more and more like-minded as myself, to where it's like, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to do it. And it's forcing discussions not only at our level, but also at the level of doctors and medical researchers. And if they're not going to give us the answers, I think we will find them ourselves.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of biomakers out there producing, whether it's 3D printed. I've even seen a Lego built artificial arm that was fully articulated, that was designed for a kid. And the amount of things that the non-medical professional can do at this point is absolutely wild. And then adding in embeddable chips makes it just potentially next level.
Yeah, I'm the first person to say I don't trust medical science. I don't. My doctors hate me because I walk in and I'm like, I want a treatment. I want a cure. I don't want a pill. I'm not saying that every doctor out there is this, but in my personal experience, most doctors these days are, in my opinion, just very, very highly educated drug dealers. We don't deal with the problem. We give a pill to address the symptoms. And I think that as there are more and more people that are getting tired of the idea of there's a pill for that, when I actually want a cure. Case in point, personally, not only do I have a bunch of medical or, implanted microchips, I got my first medical implant on a year ago for my birthday. I got a brand new knee. And that experience in and of itself really opened my eyes, because I knock on wood, I've lived a pretty healthy life, as unhealthy of a lifestyle as I've lived. I, haven't had a lot of interactions with medical. And my knee, I just ground my knee down to nothing. And I was having to have water taken off of it every 3 weeks. And they were like, well, we just want to keep giving you cortisone and we're going to just do this. And I asked my doctor, I said, is this going to fix the problem? No. What's the fix? You need a knee replacement. Okay, let's replace the knee. And the reason I bring this up is because at the time I was only 49 years old. And the insurance company was like, we need you to wait until next year. They didn't want to give me the procedure for 9 months because according to their chart of when somebody is, optional or available to get these types of procedures, there are people who are making decisions about our health based on some kind of a flow chart. And that to me is one of the things that's really pushing the concepts of self-experimentation. And I think we're going to start seeing more people moving to non-traditional medical solutions.
Yeah, I think we could probably spend a completely separate episode of a podcast or webinar or something discussing that, because I completely agree. I have a lot of thyroid problems and they won't put me on anything because my numbers aren't there yet. So that's like I can completely get on board with that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening that it's not personal to them, it's someone they know.
And let me ask you a question, Kayla. If there was a repo out there where somebody was doing some kind of project that could potentially help your thyroid, would it be something that you would be willing to go and investigate?
Yeah. I started to advocate for myself, which I think is, what you're discussing for your knee. And they were like, oh, we're just going to take half your thyroid because I have 2 nodules. Mm-hmm. But I don't have hypothyroidism, but I have nodules. I was like, well, I don't want you to take half my thyroid. I don't want to be on pills for the rest of my life. My husband's English. Turns out in England, they do laser ablation of those types of things if they're under a certain size. And I brought it up to the doctor. He's like, oh, yeah, well, we don't do laser ablation here, but we could do, ARFID ablation if you want to do something like that. I'm like, well, then why wasn't that offered? Like, why isn't that part of this discussion? Why do you want to cut me open? So, yeah, I mean, I could completely go down that path with you, and we probably should talk about it sometime outside of this. And I'm sure other people that are listening probably feel the same way. But kind of like getting back to the cybersecurity side of this, leadership looks very different. I think when your work can blur the line between human and machine. So how did you figure out how to manage, because you obviously have to walk the walk and talk the talk, and especially as a leader. So that influence, is there anything in particular you found challenging or easier? Is there anything like that?
Well, the funny thing is I don't consider myself a leader. I've been called that, but I'm not doing any of this to try and change anybody's mind. I'm not trying to start the first cyborg rebellion. I'm just doing what makes sense to me, and if people kind of can relate to that, I think that's great. I have no problem sharing, the research I've done, anything that has helped me make my decisions. But I don't expect anybody to follow me. I'm just doing what makes sense to me. So I have a hard time kind of, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. It's like, I don't see myself as that. I just see myself as another crazy hacker guy. I don't see myself any different than anyone else. Yeah. We can all do the same things. It's just a matter of, I can do it in a different way.
Mm-hmm. So I like that. Yeah.
But I don't think I'm better than anyone else. I don't think I'm just another crazy hacker guy. But in terms of, things that I find easier or harder, I think the hardest thing for me has been general acceptance. Mm-hmm. I have friends of mine that I've known for 30 years, and they knew me when I was a criminal, which I find this just blows my mind. It's like they had no problem when I was running around with the motorcycle clubs and breaking into things and doing dirt, and they were never afraid of me. But once they found out that I had implanted myself, now when I come over, they're shutting their phones off, they're putting them inside the microwave, and it's like, man, if I wanted to hack you, I could have done it long before now. So I think it's just the difference of perspective and perception based on what people think I am.
Yeah, and it's new as well. So it's not the act of being a criminal in terms of like going out and breaking in and that side is normalized. It's known, where this is the unknown. So, that's disappointing to hear. Sorry about that.
No, but it's true. I'm just going out doing my thing, and everybody else. We've all seen those memes where it's like, IT, cybersecurity, what they think I am, and it's like the guy sitting in NORAD, and it's just 900 screens, and we're all looking at green terminals. What my friends think I am. There's just some dude sitting over in a corner, and then what the general public thinks I am, and there's a Terminator. It's like, I'm just still the same guy. I can just do things a little bit differently. And, if given the opportunity, I think the idea that, you actually have to go through, a procedure to get these is about the only thing that's stopping people is that social stigma that I'm going to do something that the world is going to look at me and think I'm weird. And beyond that, the ones that really, really scare the hell out of me are the religious extremists. And will tell you straight up, I have been called out by name on 3 separate Christian extremist websites for having the mark of the beast. Because at one point I had a credit card in my hand and I could tap to pay. Who knew the mark of the beast was Visa?
Wow.
The funny thing, the running joke that I use with that is that the company that ran that microchip has actually went out of business. So I guess my mark has been revoked because I can't pay for anything with my hand anymore.
So let's pull on that thread a little bit. How do you balance the experimentation that you do with being responsible and ethical, particularly when the tech that you're working about can change how people think, feel, or perform, or how they think, feel, or perform around you?
This is going to sound really, really bad, but I'm an honest person. I don't care what people think of me. If you like me and you want to sit down and have a conversation with me, I will sit down and talk to anyone. And I have sat down with rabbis. I have sat down with imams. I have sat down with priests.
The imams is the scariest one out of that. I can guarantee it. They terrify me.
My thing is, if you want to sit down and have a conversation and you want to ask me, why are you doing this? What are you getting out of it? I'll sit down and I'll talk to you honestly. If you want to form an opinion about me and what I'm doing based off of your perception and your understanding, I can't help you. I've said for a long time, I consider myself to be an ambassador. I'm not afraid to come out and tell the world that this is what I've done. Yeah. And the truth is, there's close to 100,000 implants that have been sold globally. Now, in the grand scheme of population, this is not a large number. But when you consider the fact that there could be up to 100,000 individuals walking out there with the same types of capabilities that I have, but yet I'm one of the only ones that's come out publicly and said, hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You need to deal with me. And there are more like me. I think that's the big difference, because most people that have these types of implants, they don't tell people. They won't say it, not because they're ashamed of it, but at the same time, they just don't want the negative repercussions and the feedback that come with it.
Yeah.
I've lived my whole life being on the fringe. Yeah. So it's, for me, I think it was just the right setup for the right technology.
Yeah. And, given your background, your history, and how you've moved into not being a leader, but I don't want to say influencer either, because I kind of feel like that word has a negative.
Every time somebody calls me that.
Yeah, I don't like that word either, but I feel like you're in a position of influence in the space. You're talking to the government. You're advocating for this new technology.
I'll take advocate. I'll definitely take advocate.
I like that. Okay. So what do you think right now is separating people who are safely evolving with technology and from those, I guess, on the other side who, cross lines that they shouldn't, maybe, who want to have these implants and use them for the nefarious reasons when there aren't any laws and regulations kind of monitoring or preventing these things from happening? Like, are you seeing certain people that are saying, like, black market, we're going to do this?
Oh yeah. I mean, real quick, just to give some people some frame of reference and context. Take a look and do some research on an individual named FM 2030. Now, that is he legally changed his name to that, and I'm not even going to attempt his real name. It was like Freudian something. And most people have never heard FM's name, but everybody knows who he was. He was one of the godfathers of cryogenics and is currently actually frozen in California. And the reason he chose the name FM 2030 is he figured by the year 2030, the technology would be available to allow them to thaw him out and reanimate him. But he actually had a philosophy that at some point in the future, people will no longer be divided by politics and ideologies, but it's going to be by either whether or not you embrace technology, and he called those people upwingers, or if you were a downwinger or somebody that wanted to remain rooted in the past and in the dirt, and that would be a downwinger. And I see a lot of his philosophy taking shape and coming to fruition, just not the way that we had expected it. You know, I do see a division in people's ideology based around technology, but we haven't lost the concept of politics behind it yet either. But I do see, you know, my father, you know, the generations before us that didn't grow up with this. And even if you want to be technical, even us, you know, I'm not, like I said, Kayla, you don't look a day over 24, so I know you can't really understand this stuff. But me and the other gray-haired guy over here, we remember the old days. But
there is hair dye. I'm going to put it out there. For me, not you guys. I'm saying.
But even us, we were there during the computer revolution. You know, and if you look at how we use technology compared to the kids today, we're even different from them. This is continuing to advance and be interpreted by newer generations in ways that we hadn't even considered. And so from that perspective, I think the idea of the upwinger and the downwinger is extremely appropriate. And I do see it becoming more and more of the deciding factors in how people are going to be living their lives, because the technology is the integration point that allows everybody to make things work and get along.
Yeah. Growing up, I always heard about the Jetsons, right? Oh,
where's my flying car?
I did watch the Jetsons. Again, I'm not as young as I look, but thank you so much. Flattery definitely wins here. But you know, there's a lot of talk about how we aren't as advanced as people had envisioned us being, and I think a lot of that has to do to what you said before, Len, around people having that hesitation, that fear of the unknown, and being judged by others for decisions that they make. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well. So
I have people that once I got implanted, they just basically said, you know what, we're not friends anymore.
Yeah.
And if somebody is going to look at me as a result of me implanting a piece of technology and they don't want to be associated or have a relationship with me anymore, then we may never have had the relationship that I thought that we had in the first place.
Exactly. So we've talked a little bit about, you know, what you're doing in the sphere of influencing and advocating for new tech. So let's get a little more hands-on and into the fun stuff, because you don't just hack systems, you actually are truly hacking the interface between humans and machines. So tell us a little bit about how your workflow is when you're testing these new augmented tools, the wearables, the cognitive test, or evaluating what implant you're going to get next.
Let me tell you the project that I'm currently working on. I think that's one that I can do. So the last implant that I got put in, which is the one that we actually filmed for my documentary, I Am Machine, that was put into my right arm, is actually a Java card implant that is based off of the VivoKey architecture. So this is that FIPS compliant, blockchain compatible. You know, the VivoKey is a kind of a lockdown architecture, and you have apps that you can put on it. That's where you can put your Tesla key, your FIDO2, your OTP, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. The Java card is the same basic technology, but it's not locked into those apps only. So me and a very good friend of mine, his name is Dr. Morgan Reese. He actually has his doctorate degree in self-sovereign identity. So we are actually working on putting together a proof of concept framework to almost act as an IDP for a human being based off of self-sovereign identity keying to the Java card implant. So we are actually trying to find a way to do human validation through a decentralized architecture via a subdermal implant. So this is the project that we're currently working on.
Now, with that, do you see any ways that that might go horribly, horribly wrong in the wrong hands?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Any technology in the wrong hands could go horribly, horribly wrong. So, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm a pessimist, but I'm a realist. And if there's a way for somebody to try and take advantage of someone, I have no doubt that there's somebody that's going to try and do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea that by proving and vetting out this concept, maybe we can start getting away from these large central repositories for validation. I mean, we're living now, and we can start with Sora 2 or whatever you want to talk about. But between deep fakes, LLMs, AI, we've moved into, in my opinion, a world where we can no longer believe what we see and what we hear. Right now, even for the audience, you see, the tags: Joshua Copeland, Kayla Williams, Len Noe. You don't know that this is us. There's no SSL key in the corner that says I am me. But the truth is, we're getting to a point in time where we need something like this. And if it's not going to be this, okay, that's fine. At least I'm throwing something out on the table for discussion. And if it ain't going to be this, somebody else come up with something else. Let's talk.
Yeah. Well, thinking about, I guess, the societal shift towards, having the implants and moving towards not just like the devices for like opening doors, but the medical devices. So now we're getting into really personal data. How do you then envision securing people, securing the being, I guess, now at this point? We've been hearing securing the people, are people of the weakest link and all this stuff for years. So this is going to take that to a very different level.
Oh, yeah. That's what I've said 3 times so far. Neural data privacy rights.
Yeah.
And what we do about that is I'm a strong supporter of Mr. Arbaugh. I definitely am out here bringing this to people's attention. There are amazing podcasts like this one where, we get a platform to go, hey, we need to start talking about this now. We have the opportunity to get in front of this. And let's be honest. One of the things that I learned when I was doing the research for my book is when it comes to the FAA, not the FAA, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which is the governmental agency that regulates all medical devices. They don't have a single black hat, white hat security person on their staff.
Oh.
Every medical device that is certified at the behest of the manufacturer, and it's outsourced. So if you ask me, this is a major conflict of interest. And they're out to make money. So it's going to take people like me, people like you, putting this out there, and we need to make a big enough stink that we force something. And I don't know if that's regulation. I don't know if that's going to be some kind of court of public opinion, but if you look at some of the stuff that Mr. Arbaugh, which was Neuralink's patient 1, what he said and I'll send you guys the articles as well. How do you, when you're in his situation where you're basically trapped in your body and this is the only option you have, you take it. And then you worry about it after the fact. But once he got the implant, then it started hitting him. What is Neuralink able to get out of my brain? They're able to, like I said, we can't interpret those thought patterns yet. But what we can do is they can detect differences. They can tell when, your stress level goes up, your blood pressure goes up, all this stuff. And they can do whatever they want with that right now. They can sell it, they can market it, they can use it for somebody else. There's nothing there because we are still blazing the road. And as far as I'm concerned, this is eventually going to affect all of us. And the more people like you and me and Joshua that we can get out there and start getting people to at least have conversations, eventually something's going to change.
So, with that, where do you see things like AI and transhuman augmentation generally helping humans operate better in the next 2 to 5 years? And where do you think it's going to dangerously amplify overconfidence?
I'll give you the same answer for both. And we can start with simple concepts of exoskeletons. I was reading an article on Futurist magazine the other day that said that the current estimation is that by the year 2035 there will be no more wheelchairs. Everything will be moving to exoskeletons. So when it comes to implantation, the ability to interface machine learning, AI, some kind of a neural implant that can actually interface to your exoskeleton, that will do amazing things for disability people, quadriplegics.
Yep.
Now, that is the positive side. And you said the negative side. We could say the same thing. What happens if you're not a quadriplegic? What if you just want to be able to outrun people and commit crime? We can't judge the human intent. So we have to try and build for the masses and address people who are going to abuse those technologies on a case-by-case basis. But at least we're having the conversations to know that this could happen. And that's my whole purpose for getting out here and having these types of conversations is what you said in the beginning, Kayla. This is not science fiction. It's science fact. This is not something that's going to happen. It's already happened. And we're already here. And the truth is, most people don't know that we even exist.
Yeah, I mean, this has certainly been incredibly eye-opening for me. And I mean, I'll admit, I was very in the dark about a lot of these things. I didn't know all of this other. I mean, you hear about it, but the news, whether it's online or mainstream media, doesn't tend to focus on the niche things as well as maybe they should, right?
And I think they should. And honestly, I'm hoping that after I get my opportunity to present in front of the Old Crow Society, getting the Department of War involved, I'm hoping that we can start getting conversations happening at a larger audience.
Yeah, there will be visibility for sure. I see we're coming close to the end. So what we always end Criticality Live with like a set of core questions, just to give the audience like a practical, take it with you insights.
Awesome.
So if you could fix one thing about what you were advocating for, other than the fact that it's niche right now, overnight, what would it be?
Grace. Don't judge strictly off of the fact that someone has done an implant, and take the time to talk to them. Give it a little bit, give it some grace. Have a conversation and realize that even if we augment, we are still people. We still have feelings, and my face is not going to melt off, and there's not going to be a red eye glowing behind it.
Okay, Hal. So with that, what's one practice, it could be technical, cultural, or both, that you wish that organizations would stop doing immediately?
Oh, I only get one?
We can do one of each, one technical, one cultural.
Cultural, I wish people would realize, and this is going to be probably one of the most unpopular things that has ever been said on this show, is nobody cares about your opinion. Nobody cares about your opinion. You're welcome to have it. But, I remember growing up, my dad telling me opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one, and most of them stink. So culturally, you're allowed to have an opinion, but you don't need to tell everybody.
I know we're up on time, but the one thing I think that the internet has really taken away is people saying something and getting punched in the mouth and learning a lesson. Having been punched in the mouth, admittedly, but I feel like people get emboldened to say things and do things online.
Oh, yeah. And from a technical perspective, I wish companies would start looking at security for the purpose of security and not just regulation and checking a box.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
That is absolutely critical.
All right. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Criticality Live, everyone. Huge thank you to our guest, Len Noe. And even bigger thanks to all of you for hanging out with us and being a part of our growing community of leaders who are done with buzzwords and are ready for real conversations. Len, we'll get your information so that people can start to reach out to you, follow you and your.
Can I throw one last thing out real quick?
Please, yeah.
Anybody that's in the Dallas Grapevine area, we are doing a screening of my documentary, I Am Machine, coming up on the 15th of this month. There are tickets left. This would be the Lone Star Cyber Circus 3. We are going to be actually screening it at an actual movie theater. If you look on my LinkedIn or go to the cybersecurity.com, the Eventbrite page is there, and there are still tickets available.
Well,
very cool.
Border in Shreveport, so I might have to make the trek over to Grapevine.
Well, I got a better idea. I haven't been to Louisiana in a little while, so let's talk offline and let's find a reason for me to come bring the movie to Louisiana.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. So, hey, if you enjoyed the episode, please like, share, follow, subscribe here on LinkedIn, anywhere else. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.